curtain editions have been sort of constructed. Probably the most kind of notable would be the contrast of the green here, and then this red ink. And the green is sort of, I don't know, it's
through culture, where art is a form of thought. I think I have blows the cobwebs from my mind. I enjoy the contrast of painting with the sculpture.
You see,
as it aligns
yeah, a lot of the times I just intuitively sort of, pick up a colour. I don't like to think too much because I would never do anything. Planning these things, I don't plan it, so it's not like, I know what's going to happen. And I leave even the colours to a sense that I'll just pick up. Maybe I will put a few there, I have done that. But I even find I don't like to do that because it impedes with the flow. So it's almost like I like to pick up the colour and just then concentrate on the movement. And that seems to be very satisfying. And if anything, that's what I think it ought to be, satisfying. And if that brings pleasure to me, or the hedonistic sort of criterion, then it might, if bring it to other people, that's good as well. If not, well, at least it's brought it to one conscious sentient being. And if I don't like doing it and no one else, then I've really lost, because then no one's liked it. So you've got to like doing it, and one part of that is not getting caught up too much in planning these things. If there was a definite audience and you knew roughly what they wanted, and that was the criterion, then there's a sort of sense of, desire, objective list, the desire to please the others, and the objective is to formulate a plan to do that. And that's what normally artists, have been associated with, because they were sponsored by rich people, they needed funding, and wealthy merchants could then dictate through commission what ought to be done. Quite different than, say, hunter-gatherer people who just pick up something and, ochre, for example, or whatever, charcoal after burning something, and then scratch it. That's, I think, the impulse that I'm trying to sort of follow, all things being equal. If there was another criterion, I might follow that, but since there isn't that criterion, then I have to look at what makes me feel good. And so I picked up this purple here. I could have gone into, I might like the green combination, but it is a random thing. And then post facto, I might think, I might like to add a little bit more to it. And that's the sort of complexity I think that I'm trying to achieve, if there is an objective list, is that through the dimension of entropy, time, things go through that process of entropy, where they start to change due to that, and that's an agent in itself. So I'm interacting with that agent, and that agent's a lot larger than my intentional agency. So I kind of think what I'm doing is inconsequential. I'm actually like the human agent that is tapping into the commodity industrial process through purchasing all the stuff that I never make, like the clay, everything. This is not sort of ochre. This is definitely manufactured commodity from a modern industrial complex. And it's just through sheer combination in the sense like addition. So it has got a sort of arithmetic kind of proceduralism, maybe not algebra, although there is some sort of X factors there where I could have a variable, like these are sort of variables, and I have an equation, and I want this part of the equation to kind of match this part, or at least, equal, bring it closer to an equality. So there is an algebraic sort of sense about it, but for each side, I would put a more simpler version of mathematics, which is more to do with arithmetic. And there's a simple, like this plus this equals maybe the dots. So they become forms that I just sort of play with, rather than the total aesthetic kind of gravitas I'm trying to push, like a colour schema. So when I'm looking at it, I think green, that seems it does seem to clash a bit. But then again, warm, cool-ish, but that's very translucent in relation to warm. Yeah, so, the whole sort of sense here is keeping the sort of rhythm going. In some sense, that's the whole process. If I sit too long and look at it and try to figure out what to do, I'd never do anything. So it's almost like very spontaneously intuitive. So it's got that sort of sense about, again, tapping into being an infant. And which is often seen in the art as very much a kind of subconscious link to a self that was irrational or free from the constraint of reason, based on mathematics, which has been part of our educational system. From a very young age, we're taught about the importance of using mathematics to achieve a kind of representation of reality that correlates at least to success. So, being taught that if we understand how it works, mathematics, we can achieve some sense of predictability.
So like the landscape
emerging, on the very basic level of numeracy.
From itself.
Being able to figure out a percentage allows us then to have a sense that we have got control over
I'm looking at the concept of temporality.
Parts of our kind of world.
And emergence, spontaneous emergence.
Yeah, at least the economics of it. So that seems to be sort of the base of mathematics. It's linked to survival. And a sense of being, again, kind of a child that
complex, interdependent relationships underpin the garment trade.
Aimless travel wandering is kind of like serendipity on hyperdrive. This golden dome represents a transhumanism form of spiritual, visionary-based ecological
so
phenomenology.
the whole concept being that prior to the understanding of mathematics, introduction,
He's
number
exploring
theory,
ruins, that if he encounters merchandise on bikes,
the world
then
was
he contemplates
unformed.
trade
It
and
was like
historical
being a
process.
hunter-gatherer
I enjoy a
and
moment's
living
reverie when
in
exploring
that
ruins
noble
that
sort of
includes being a
savage
trader of classic garments
sort
on a
of
bike.
sense. Whereas
The trusty bike
mathematics
took
is
me through
kind of an
rustic
introduction
towns and then
to
dirt roads where directions became a bit sketchy.
civilization that is based on accumulation, and with that sense of competition for which individuals can hoard as much as possible. And you had these elite groups that were very good at hoarding and creating divergence in methods to gain sort of a group advantage over resources through modes of othering in some way, finding a way where seems to be a big way that the individual through the group could achieve sort of a sense of success. In one way, kind of the artistic sort of impulse is, again, to free yourself from the kind of instructive process of the group and become a kind of an agent for a pure perception just being away from the normal rational process that solidifies in the sense of solidifying being a kind of rational ideology that is more to do with objective list for the group, fulfilling an object, that it has nothing to do with your own personal kind of well-being, but it's to do with
I am
a
going
kind
to
of
purchase
sense that
one of these tricycles to travel through the Indian subcontinent.
What if I had fat tires on this bicycle, carting the abstract stone sculptures I crafted over a year?
I am about to take a roadshow of the sculptures created over the past year in India.
These fat tires should give enough cushioning on these rough road conditions.
I will head to the local bazaar to exhibit my sculptures.
I think the spice market would be a nice place to exhibit, as it's a distinctive contrast. I travel super minimalist style and buy food and drink on the
Yeah,
road.
so this has been rather intuitive. This is a good example.
Here is one
There's
of the
structure
oldest
to it.
parts of the city. You get a real sense of history.
It
just
resembles
looking at the
square. It resembles a kind of geometric plane. But I'm not sort of measuring it out as such, and I hadn't sort of planned on doing that. So I've got to this stage and I'm feeling to stop, to see what I ought to do here. And that's a sort of rationality where I'll get to a stage and think, I'll just leave it and just get a sense if I like it there. I usually never object, I mean, I don't mind that. It's got to do with like windows into this photography that I embedded in there, which in a sense relates to string theory, to do with these embedded dimensions, which is, so I'm sort of working as well on exploring
sort of gives that feeling.
These sort of 10 dimensions that's purported
in a
by
way.
string theory to exist as a manifold within a manifold. So this would be sort of like the manifest image rather than the string theory being like a theory that is purportedly scientific. Could in theory be observed if you had strong enough instruments, which we don't because you can't probe into those sort of very small scales that string theory purports these objects exist in, but they seem like rational objects because it's based purely on mathematics and takes mathematics through algebra to these extreme boundaries where it seems, the numbers seem to sort of correlate to these geometric forms. And so there's a kind of correlation between that intuitive leap that mathematicians on that level take and sort of the arts where you kind of, see a solution as you go without having to sort of highly anticipate it. Mathematics is like this hyper language. If you get to a level where it's almost like a natural language, but poetic natural language, so solutions, not solutions, maybe theorems are seen, like or methods, formulas.
I'm buying these flowers.
So once a formula is seen, then the mathematician might find if it works. And if it works, then they share it with others, and that's the sort
Mind
of
if I try one before buying a pound?
Why it's so powerful. You can
Now
find a
it's time
formula
for a
and go,
hot
wow,
chai
this
tea.
is something I can share, and it can be repeated. Then it's the proof.
So this is
And that's not the case with art. So there's no way I could say, oh, I've found a formula for this,
I wonder if those holy men
and I'll
on
share it with
pilgrimage
the world,
might benefit
you know,
from a
as
garland
something
of
that they
flowers.
could repeat or verify as a truth condition.
flowers for ceremonial
So this is not a truth condition, but neither is it a false condition. So that's where art becomes,
These flowers are for
you
ceremonial
know,
purposes.
a strange
please
sort of
obtain
entity
a Hindu
where
guide.
you can work on it and it's neither true or false. It just sort of sits there as a artifact of the human expression, and it can be liked by other humans or hated or just thrown away. They just don't care. In most cases, I mean, if they hate it, it might be a good thing because, well, there's an emotion, but in most cases it's just ignored. Or it might be seen as, well, there's been a lot of work on this. Why would anyone do this? You know, like, why? With mathematics, well, at least at the lower levels, most can sort of understand it. So through primary school, high school, and then if you don't understand the higher mathematics, and since there's so many, even experts don't understand other fields, it seems that you just have to, as a part of a modern citizen that knows the basis of numeracy and maybe algebra, respects it, like watching a sportsman knowing that I can't run sub 10 seconds for the 100 metres, but I have run 100 metres races as a teenager, and I know where I'm at that stage, so I could appreciate a top athlete. Now, with mathematics, it's a similar thing. You know, we go to high school and we compete and we get this sort of sense. With the, of course, arts, there is a sense of aesthetic value. So there is a competition, and it's become culturally sort of codified. So we have people who do doctorates in art history, and in the sense that cultural bit has become almost like a mathematized construct, which is, in a sense, going against the spirit, or at least the kind of deep psychological impetus of what art is about, I believe.